back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is time for another edition of the MidFirst Bank Unofficial 40 podcast. Remember, go check out midfirst.com/U40. That's midfirst.com/U40 and apply for the OU Rewards credit card. I'll tell you more about that as we go along, but welcome back in. We bring in the entire gang. Josh McQuistion is there, entertaining Linda, and Eduardo Naharadosevich.
That would be awesome if I was Eduardo Nahara.
Eduardo Naharadosevich is with us as well.
My 8-year-old self would be, I was going to say coming all over the place, but that wouldn't make sense.
Oh, my God. Have some
well, at least you said it, so we all know.
Off to a roaring start here.
Hey, we're talking basketball.
That's Bob Prisbillo. He is
Roberto.
Here as well. So this first segment is dedicated to Jason Kersey because the Sooners won last night in a must-win game against Texas A&M. It was a laugher. It was easy, and Eddie and Bob, you were both there to take it all in. The Sooners played a little defense.
You don't have to cancel the rooms in Atlanta quite yet.
Christian Doolittle, he played through his broken nose, even though it was not easy
weird
for him.
It wasn't. It really, you
Bob
figure,
pissed him off on Twitter.
I can't get him smiling. I went back-to-back days where he's got this just terrible look on his face. It's like he doesn't smile.
It's a broken nose. Why would he be happy?
I think he was most upset that, his two black eyes are sitting there with him, not smiling.
He had a hell of a game, though, for a guy that has a broken face.
And for someone who needed to adjust, that first half, he pointed to his chest twice to tell Lon, you got to take me out. Yeah. I don't know what's going on yet. And he only had 4 points at half and scored 15 in the second half. Really carried the day when Austin Reeves did it in the first half. Somehow Brady Manick scores 15 points without making a three. Just a lot of those supporting pieces all came together the way that Kerr Quest played with the 5 block shots. I mean, this is one of the few teams where OU was bigger, and that's something you could tell Manick and Doolittle have been waiting for after being bounced around by Baylor and Kansas and guys like that. This was a team, they were the bigger team, and they showed it.
It was probably the most complete game Oklahoma's played all season. It seemed like every guy that had a moment on the floor, maybe outside of Alondis Williams, who threw an entry pass and then
yanked.
Played a minute 25 on Tuesday night. But it seemed like every guy had some type of contribution. Even Jalen Hill.
He
played like
5 points.
8 minutes and had some pretty impactful moments.
If he doesn't get called for a couple of those charges, he might have really put up some numbers.
Gary Pollard didn't have his best night. He didn't bring his A game last night to the Peak. I think he got intimidated by Sam Presti sitting in the stands.
How was Tech versus Mississippi State in the Peak?
I'd say probably about the same.
The only thing, there were more Tech fans than Mississippi State, so it felt bigger.
And that's why I think a lot of people thought maybe that's why they did it. Both teams wearing red. You can't tell which fan base is which fan base.
Because there are actually people on that very front row of seats that were Texas Tech people.
Yeah, I think there's a decent Tech contingent in Oklahoma City.
They just had
Every once in a while you'll run into somebody wearing some Tech stuff.
No reason to get fired up. That was the thing. So you didn't know how big of a supporting crowd they had because they had no reason to start cheering.
There's not what's your options if you went to Tech? You're not going to stay in West Texas.
No. Unless you're big time in an Abilene.
Yeah, you're either going north or you're going east.
It's really not that far.
No.
Lubbock.
No.
It was a good crowd though. I mean, it wasn't just insane.
See, that's why I told you guys last week I wanted an in-game picture of Texas TCU because if you would have taken a picture at the Peak at 7:55, you would have laughed your ass off.
It probably would have been about the same.
But then by 8:15, it's like this crowd isn't that bad. And they definitely they brought the noise, and the team played well.
Yeah, they also played well. It
allowed them to cheer more, but I mean, So now they're 17-11. I assume they'll be an 11 seed when they go through the projections.
I was watching Van Pelt while I was putting everything up last night, and Lenardi has OU as the first first four in.
The first four.
He had the first four out in and the first four out, and OU is at the very top. So you got to think if they beat West Virginia, then they're back in that 10-9 category again. Even though West Virginia,
if they beat West Virginia, they're going to be in 4th place in the Big 12.
Right,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's kind of crazy how all those teams are jumbled, and I think I mentioned
7 and 8.
I mentioned it on the U40 last week. I think I'm done with West Virginia. They can't score the basketball.
Boy, and they're the one team you go on the road. You're not worried about Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Kansas State, OU showing up as much because West Virginia really can't score enough to distance
OSU should have been up
themselves.
10 at halftime in Morgantown, and then they obviously just played awful in the second half.
It was brutal.
West Virginia, that team is literally taking years off Bob Huggins' life. I feel bad for the guy.
The qualifier output is if Culver has as many 2-foot shots as he did in Norman, I don't think they missed 22 2-foot shots in
You wouldn't think so, but I've watched West Virginia. I feel like since that game, all they do is miss shots inside in the paint. It's really kind of embarrassing. It's going to
be hard to watch. It's going to be a hard to watch.
And I don't expect Oklahoma to win either. I'd also
because they're on the road.
Well, this team is very inconsistent. They're just a very average kind of mediocre team. But if you get play like they did last night or on Tuesday night, they can compete with people.
You get a little bit of break playing Tuesday, going to Saturday, and they finally found minutes for Brady Manick to sit. He only played 27 minutes last night, and he didn't play any going down the stretch as they left Kerr Queth in, and maybe he'll get his legs back because it's clear right now he has nothing left on that shot during the last couple games.
So down the stretch here, you've got, the Big 12 tournament obviously is still out there, and you could get some pretty good wins in that thing. But you go on the road to West Virginia, you still have to go to TCU.
And then Texas.
And then Texas
the
at
senior
home,
night next
Texas
Tuesday.
is starting to play.
Exactly. Texas plays Tech Saturday, and if Texas were to win that game, then you're looking at a major showdown.
In Lubbock, I would add.
Yep. Not likely, but...
No, I think, in kind of a weird way, I don't know if Shaka's done enough to save himself down there, but they have made a run, I guess. They've won 3 in a row.
They won 3 in a row, but if they lose to
Not
Tech...
anymore. That son of a bitch, Russell Westbrook, isn't around Oklahoma City anymore.
But if they lose to Tech and then the Sooners, then they're once again on the wrong side of the bubble, and there's no chance of making it.
I would... If you had to say right now, I think the 5 teams that get in are the 5 teams that we've thought are going to get in for a while now, including Oklahoma being that 5th team. Or the 4th team, whichever way you want to look at it. Them in West Virginia flip-flopping.
I think no matter what happens, we're going to see Kansas and Baylor playing for the championship in Kansas City. They're just so much better than everybody else.
I'd probably say that's probably right. And I think Kansas is just that much better than Baylor, too. I know they lost in Lawrence, but...
Dotson was hurt in that.
Dotson was hurt. Nobody in college right now has an answer for Azubuike inside.
Yeah.
Or at least none of the teams in the Big 12 do.
And he's so much better this year.
You know what's crazy is we were talking last night that this Kansas team is good, but it kind of shows you where the state of college basketball is. They're like the 8th or 9th best Kansas team in the last decade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
It's kind of crazy. And they might be the best team in the country.
They've got guys that can score. They've got a big man. They play defense. They've got a defensive stopper. Like, nobody has that. Baylor's got some guys that, they've got good length. Like, their length surprised me in that second game with OU. Like, they just dominated. They're very physical inside. They have a lot of length, and they play good defense, and then they make big shots when they have to make them. Like, they don't blow anybody out, really, but they don't let anybody win when it gets to be crunch time. They're kind of like the Thunder a little bit.
Yeah, what you appreciate about both those teams, they don't have the what the hell just happened games like OU had in Bedlam at Kansas State. Like they bring it every single night. There's something to be said about that. Like even last night, like Duke losing to Wake Forest in double overtime. You don't see that with Kansas and Baylor. They just keep rolling.
This segment brought to you by Jason Kersey.
Love you, Jason.
Josh McQuistion is sitting silently, just waiting for us to shut up. Which I don't.
He's got the Houston camp.
That's just my time in the penalty box. I just hang out. Like I used to try and talk. I was like, I just sound like a dumbass. Like I was like, I sound terrible when I talk basketball, so I'll just abstain. The only part I was going to add is because you guys, the only thing that I could relate to is because I used to watch a lot of college basketball, and you guys were talking about Kansas and how they would relate. I was thinking, like, what would this Kansas team do against, like, that group that had, like, Jacques Vaughn and LaFrance and Paul Pierce and those guys? Like, they'd get run out of the arena.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. See,
Yep.
literally, that's how exciting my college basketball takes are. They're 20 years dated.
Yeah, when you start off with Jacques Vaughn.
Bam.
Jared Haas.
Oh, my God.
I'm more of a Brady Heslop guy, but that's just me.
My brother-in-law is a huge Kansas fan, and he has met Jared Haas like several times and is like, he's excited about it. Like he thinks that's a great
starstruck.
Thing.
Make me bring up Kevin Pritchard.
See, I don't even know that one. That's just that's a no for me.
He's from Tulsa. All right, so there's a lot of stuff going on recruiting-wise. I know there's, Josh, you just did the Houston Rivals camp, but a lot of build-up out there right now for the March 1st weekend as you see more and more names kind of starting to commit to that. And really, spring games, I've seen a lot of stuff about, A&M's looks like they're going to try and make their spring game a pretty big. Well, they're like March or April 7th, I think. Is that even the weekend?
11th or 4th.
Something like it. Yeah, so I've just seen people saying I'm committing to going to A&M or whatever. But, Josh, I don't know where you want to start first. I guess we'll start with Houston, just kind of what you saw down there. What were obviously, you got to see a lot of guys, some guys maybe that didn't show up. Just kind of give your impressions of the guys that you saw and what really stood out to you at the Houston Rivals camp.
Well, the thing, and we've talked about it on the pod for over a year now, the offensive line talent in Houston and this, it's not just 2021, but largely built on 2021. It's just insane.
I feel like Ruben Fatheree has been going to camps for about 10 years now.
Yeah, and he wasn't even at this one. That tells you how crazy it was, because what they did that I thought was kind of cool this year was they had each group of offensive linemen work as 5 the whole time. So the first group out was at right tackle was Cam Dewberry, a 2022 Oklahoma offer that's going to come up in the spring. Right guard was Bryce Foster. Center is Luis Chavaria, a center from Houston Episcopal that's got some offers. Left guard's Donovan Jackson, who's committed to Ohio State. And left tackle's Hayden Connor, who's going to Texas. That's if you could just tell a coach they could have that camp offensive lineman, they'd be done with recruiting for the year. That's a stellar 5 to have. And again, Chavaria is a guy that most people don't know, and I think he's got 3 or 4 Power 5 offers. It's just crazy. And then you throw in that Fatheree wasn't there. Colin Montgomery, the OU commitment, wasn't there. There's just a lot of offensive line talent in the Houston area. And, obviously Foster is the guy to talk about. Talking to him, I had a first chance to do a, kind of in-person interview with him in a couple of months, really. And I think Oklahoma's making a legitimate run at him. I really think he likes what he's hearing from them. He was really impressed with the way Oklahoma kind of presented the track and football and how they could work together, and kind of had laid out a schedule for him, what his springs would look like. Just very organized. I think that really kind of impressed him. And I'm sure other schools will now follow suit. But the fact that Oklahoma had given it that forethought, I think, really made an impression on him. He'll be back for his official visit for the spring game, like we were just talking about. And that's a big deal for Oklahoma. I think he is a guy that has said he's going to take his final official visit in November, and it'll be to Oregon. I don't know. We'll see if he runs it that far. He's certainly not a guy that I get the feeling just hates all of this. But at the same time, I think Bryce is a guy that likes some simplicity in his life, and he might say, okay, I've seen what I need to see. I'm going to go ahead and be done with this, because I just don't know about a Houston kid going to Oregon in November and falling in love. That doesn't add up to me. The other is Cam Dewberry, like I mentioned, big time tackle from Atascocita. Like I said, he's going to come up, and I think in a couple of weeks. He's a little unclear. His spring break is like March 9th through the 15th, and that's the week he's going to come up, though he doesn't know what day yet. We could go over a whole bunch of guys. Terrence Cooks was very impressive. Obviously, Cody Jackson, the wide receiver commitment from Richmond Foster, got the 5-star invite. So it's whatever you guys kind of want to talk about. I don't want to run on for 30 minutes like I did last week.
Well, all right, I'll go. Now that it's over, who do you feel better in terms of the Sooners' chances with, and who maybe do they have a lot more work than what you might have first thought?
I kind of touched on Foster. I feel a little more positive, but the guy that I will say that I kind of came away with, and I think it will surprise people, was Terrence Cooks. And I say that not because Texas doesn't have a big lead. Texas does have a big lead. They do. They really impressed him and his family when he went there. But I think anybody listening to that interview, Terrence Cooks is pretty excitable. Like he is a high-energy guy, and I get the feeling he's going to be one of those guys that kind of falls in love several places he goes. So Oklahoma getting him up this Sunday for that March 1st weekend, I think maybe there's a chance he comes out saying a lot of the same things he had to say about Texas. Like, just I love it. My family loved it. Coach Odom's great. Just all the things that you need to hear to feel like Oklahoma has a chance there. And, kind of to wrap up his story, he was outstanding. Linebacker MVP. It won't shock me if he doesn't end up getting a 5-star invite down the road. I think he came in not highly ranked enough to kind of be a guy that the regional and national guys had checked off on and said, okay, if he's good at camp, invite him. They just didn't know enough yet. I think in time he may end up being a 5-star challenge kind of guy because he looked like a Rivals 100 linebacker out there moving around on Sunday. He was absolutely dominant.
Just from what I saw in the video that you sent back, that was very impressive just as far as off the hoof of seeing him move around. I thought that was incredible. What do you bet that Bryson Washington and him get into contact during his time in Norman?
Oh, I think that's a good possibility, and it makes a ton of sense. I mean, you're talking about two very
He kind of just lived it, didn't he?
Yep.
And just as far as his recruitment, Bryson's.
Sure. And that's a great point, Eddie, because he can come to Terrence and be like, look, man, everybody thought I was going to Texas. I did love Texas. I kind of thought that might be where I was going to go. And then I came up here, gave it an honest look, and realized, however Bryson wants to pitch that. But, it's like I've said, I don't know at this point what Texas is selling. Like, I don't know what the pitch is other than you're from the state of Texas. You're supposed to come here.
Well, I think anybody that has paid attention to social media world would probably recognize or realize Roy Manning has been pitching not so subtly the last month and a half, it seems like.
I love it. Because we talk about it all the time, guys. There needs to be bad blood in this thing. Like, it shouldn't be friendly, and it's not supposed to be. It's a rivalry, and they are going for all the best players, and they're going head to head a lot.
Oh, I want Roy Manning and Carrington to have like a death cage match the night before OU Texas.
I'm gonna go ahead and wager a guess that doesn't go well for Carrington.
Why? Because he's never won anything in his life.
Well, I mean, I don't know that
unless he brings
most former Home Depot employees are taking on.
I was just getting ready to say
players.
unless he brings a hammer from Home Depot, I think Roy Manning should be okay.
Yeah, and Manning's just a bigger guy than I think people think he is. He's that's a fit dude.
Yeah, he's a large man.
Yeah,
I agree though. I agree with you. There needs to be some bad blood, but I do think that the Bryson Washington aspect is at least an interesting pitch that he could throw to somebody and say, I've been here for a couple of weeks, love it, or maybe he hates it. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. And, Bryson, like I said, is kind of one of those guys that is – I don't want to – and I hate to make that the comparison to Buki because that's not really what I'm talking about. But he has that personality that people tend to like. I've never heard anyone come away from dealing with Bryson that wasn't like, oh yeah, that's a good dude. He's good to deal with. Like, you know, and obviously from media, he's going to put on the right look, and I understand that. But at the same time, there are people that aren't in the media that have dealt with him that always kind of came away saying like he's kind of a natural leader, kind of has that personality. And I think that could play a role here. And like I said, we'll see. I mean, OU's got to make a move with Cooks. But like I said, we talked about it last week. With Oklahoma now having Kobe McKenzie potentially in that 2021 class, it allows them some freedom to maybe stay in the Cooks race a little longer than they normally would because, you know, let's see how this plays out rather than, no, we got to go find whoever it's going to be if it's not going to be him.
Is there any potential this year for a Jay Boulware versus OU running backs battle?
Gotta be in state of Texas.
I mean,
Wheaton
LJ
and Johnson.
Wheaton.
I didn't know if Wheaton's how serious he was on Texas or.
I definitely get the impression that OU would be in the front of those two for him because he seems like a guy that is very much like you better show me some success. Like another good one is like Tunmise Adelier. Like I mean. I don't know that OU is going to end up being. Yeah, you guys. That I did not have the heart to correct it last week, but
you needed it to. If you care, come on now, Josh.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
get
care.
The Bob passive aggressive.
Kim, good luck in Gainesville.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with Eddie.
But no, you know that was
unless he signs with OU, then I never said that.
Then you're back on the wagon. Sure. Well,
I never got off the wagon.
Austin Seibert can certainly explain that, you know, just because you don't say the name right, Eddie, doesn't mean you don't love them.
He's not your biggest fan.
Which is so strange.
Because of a 4-year-old tweet, like, and I want, like, I'm not going to get into it with him on Twitter, but I'm like, dude, I could show you the stats and where you were when I made that tweet. I'm pretty confident you would agree that you were not doing it to the level you wanted to be doing it. So, like, I don't know why that.
Maybe he was. Maybe he was just setting everybody up for a big comeback.
I mean, I think at that point he was like 2 for 4, and he
was. I'll say this: people had started rumors that he was losing his leg at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that's mostly due to Schmitty.
I think the rumor was plantar fasciitis or something like that, which I don't even know if that really exists. I don't think that's real.
Yeah. Nasty rumor. It's not like you called him a midget or anything.
I think that's like mesothelioma. It doesn't really exist. Just lawyers try and scare you on TV with it.
That's a fact.
Okay, so that Mayfield video, that was somebody off camera, right? Like that was somebody that was
Tony
not
Grossi?
on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a good day, Tony. Wasn't a good day for you.
Tony.
God.
Arrest the man. Arrest him.
I do like how... Like the paper, the corporate explanation for it is, oh, well, he offended little people. Like, no, you're suspending him.
No, he said
you called Baker a fucking midget. Like, it wasn't about little people. This is about you being, coming off as very unprofessional to the point that your station might get,
Well, they're in contract negotiations right now for the Browns broadcast rights.
Yeah. This isn't about little people.
It's the word. No, if you didn't laugh at that comment, you don't have a sense of humor, first off.
Which, by the way, I mentioned this morning that I wonder when Jim Traber's going to get suspended because he introduces Al Ashback as king of the midgets every day. We could only hope
in today's climate, all Al has to probably do is just complain about it and see ya. You're gone.
Hunger strike.
Yeah, just go on a hunger strike. That gets everybody's ways these days. I thought it was hilarious, too, because Tony Grossi is just he's just an old little bitch that didn't like Baker before because he probably doesn't think he respects the game enough.
See the Mac Engel of
Cleveland?
Like
he gets what he deserves. That's why I think it's so funny.
I mean,
did you watch the video? I do like how the other guy's sitting there. I think his name's Rizzo or something. And
I didn't see the video.
It's because it's a live stream and they're on a remote, so they're during a commercial break.
Oh, he wasn't actually at the combine.
No, they are. They're up there,
okay.
But they're on like a live stream from the combine.
Right.
So they're just sitting there during the break, and the stream doesn't cut out. So he had to have known it was live, or they didn't turn down the volume, and they're just kind of bullshitting back and forth. He's like, "Yeah, and what do we have? A fucking midget." And like the guy looks up at the live stream like, oh shit! Like I can't. He's
like Tony looked up.
No,
Or
the other guy.
No.
Okay.
And then
Tony's out of the shot. He's not in it.
And then Grossi looks at the other guy and's like, "Is that on?" Like you can see that he's asking if the volume's on. He's like F it, you know.
Well,
it doesn't matter. It's funny.
I brought this up today. This was when OU played in the Insight Bowl and OSU played in the Fiesta Bowl, and Dave Sittler, after Bill Young had his press conference, like they were live streaming it then, and so Dave Sittler walks up into a walk-off, not realizing that this thing was going out over live stream, and he was kind of doing the thing where he was just trying to have a real conversation with Bill Young because he was John Blake's defensive coordinator at Oklahoma, and he called John Blake a slapdick. Dave Sittler did to Bill, and Bill Young's, I don't know what you're talking about. And Sittler took a ton of heat for that. Like, it got bad for a while, but that's one of those things. Like, I'm always, because we do streaming when we can, and I'll cut off the audio like in between people because I don't want to get someone. I don't want to have a gotcha moment with somebody.
Yeah, and Hauk will remind us every Monday when we're kind of talking around the press conference. Mm-hmm. You can be heard.
Yeah, that it picks it up. Mm-hmm. I know Josh has caught some funny things before in the past.
Yeah, what was that? There was one that was pretty bad during this season. I can't remember what the hell it was now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, those mics are hot and they pick up a lot because I know, like I'll hear Eddie every once in a while. I'm like, I know Eddie's not in the front of that room. So,
and it's not uncommon for us to say horrible things just between us.
Yeah,
that we don't really mean and we would never say, but it's kind of like a comedian. You say stuff to get a rise out of each other sometimes.
And it's just like anybody listening, sitting around talking with their buddies. Like
it's like a roast sometimes.
Some of the shit that comes out of your mouth. It's just stuff you're talking about.
Like, I've always thought like I don't know, in a way like the PC people that just get so upset about something that's said publicly it's just locker room talk. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's the same people who get mad at you and say that you're like, some guy got mad at me last week because I talked about how shitty Terrence Ferguson looked when he, in a game.
That was weird.
And a guy said, "Why are you dogging him out?" I'm like, "I'm not dogging him out. I just said I said what everybody else could see, which is he played like crap."
Oh, there's definitely a culture out there that
it's the cancel culture.
You can't see two sides of it. You can't, if you say like it. Kids these days say it all the time. It's like we see it in recruiting all the time. It's like, this guy's a really good player, and then somebody will fire back, well, he's not as good as, such and such. It's like, I never said that player B isn't good.
It wasn't a slight on someone that I wasn't even thinking about.
Exactly. You see that all the time. It's like the number one guy in the country, or the number 3 player at his position thinks that, well, I'm
slept on.
I'm being slept on.
By the way, okay, so
shut up.
What's worse though, Tony Grossi calling Baker Mayfield, hold on, a fucking midget, or Jerry Jeudy having a Star of David necklace because people call him Jew? Isn't that a lot worse?
I love it. No,
how is it not worse?
Because it's not insulting to a Jewish person. Like, it's not meant to be like, well, you like. I think
it's
less
not
of you.
Insulting.
It's
stupidity is not insulting.
But like,
yeah,
at the
it is.
same time,
it's Jewish appropriation.
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is.
Jewish washing.
He's doing it for the jokes.
Yes,
just like Watley.
But like, but you can't say.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't
converting to Judaism just for a necklace.
People aren't saying, "Oh, that's Jerry. The Holocaust maybe didn't happen, Judy."
Yes. And by the way, why don't you just put a swastika next to it? Because a Jerry was what we called the Germans in World War II.
I thought it was pretty funny. It's a funny audio clip hearing him explain it.
It hurts him, I think. I mean,
no.
Yes,
there's not going to be a team that doesn't.
No.
You think there's going to be a team that doesn't draft him because some teammates call him Jew?
He's going to be not because of teammates call him a Jew, but because he got the Star of David.
Why would that
shows poor judgment?
If that prevents a GM from drafting him, that GM should not only be fired immediately, he should be arrested.
The GM that's going to draft him
you should take CeeDee Lamb ahead of him anyways.
Desperate. I mean, I think that solidified that CeeDee Lamb is going to be the first wide receiver taken.
I feel like
unless CeeDee Lamb comes out with a, upside down cross, at the next availability or something.
Yeah, this is an upside down cross. I'm not a Christian, so I put it upside down. What if you said that?
All right.
I think we have derailed.
Yeah. That was a bad example given by me.
But no,
it's just funny.
There's going to be nothing to pay from that for Jerry Jeudy. And it's just fun. The only thing I thought of was the Chappelle Show racial draft. And I thought I had one of my great tweets of all time that literally no one gave a shit about.
Those are the worst. Those are the worst when you put
tweet.
something out there that you think is really funny and it flops.
Yep.
Or you're just ahead of your time is what it was.
I had the picture of, the rapper that was in that race draft. He was the black delegation. His name is Rondell.
Old Dirty Bastard?
Mos Def. It was
Mos Def.
And Mos Def plays the leader, and I was like, "Your move, Rondell." And so I just, and it was a picture of him, and I was like, and he's like on the phone talking. I was like, "This is perfect," and nobody gave a shit about it. I thought it was funny as hell. It made me laugh.
Here, let me ask you this, Josh. We'll get back on track here a little bit. Make the argument of why a team would take a Jerry Jeudy over CeeDee Lamb. Because to me, in my small mind,
it'll be because he runs a 4.3 4.40.
Just and then straight up faster.
Yeah, just straight line speed, I would say.
I mean,
He's
somebody mentioned it on the board.
But it's not that big.
What are we expecting CD to run?
I say low
4.45 best at best.
Yeah, I'd say low 4.5s. Like
he runs a 4.45. He's gonna make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I went 4.49 was my guess, and I don't think CD runs that every day of the week. But I bet you money that's been 70% of what he's been working on.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Kyler showing up and suddenly being 5'10 plus. Kyler Murray ain't 5'10 plus walking around every day all day. It ain't happening. But
he spent a lot of time hanging upside down in those boots.
Because Baker talked about it on Pardon My Take about how there was stuff that you could do to make yourself taller when you needed to be. Like you could kind of sneak it around, and I'm sure Kyler did the same shit. But no, I think Lamb will run. I'll tell you my bold prediction: Kenneth runs faster than CD.
Ooh, that is a bold prediction.
I think Kenneth is going to test just stupid.
I think it's going to be very interesting over the next 4 days. Kenneth Murray and Neville Gallimore have a chance to be kind of in a way, the darlings of the combine, don't they?
Yep.
If he runs a 4.75, he will be the talk of the combine.
Is it more? Would it be more important? Would it be more important for Alex Grinch and Brian Odom and the entire defensive staff, just Oklahoma as a whole?
Oh my God! Get ready for the social outbreak when those two get drafted.
Do you think it's more important for them to have a good combine and get drafted than it was for a guy like Kenneth Murray to even come back to school? Like, could it be argued that him going in the first round
is it better for OU for those
in
guys
the long
to
run
get the NFL exposure than it is to come back?
Right. I think
that's a great question. I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a really messed up way to talk about it because, obviously.
It's going to help it quicker.
Yeah, Brian Odom would want Kenneth Murray to come back next season.
If Murray came back, he's still a first-round guy for next year. But the fact that you did a year earlier, a year sooner, now you've got recruits for 2021 and 2022 already believing.
I would say this. If you could trade those two guys in and not be drafted in exchange for a safety going in the first round, that'd be the best thing that could happen. Yeah. Although we're starting to play Fantasy Island here.
Well, and guys, an interesting angle of this, we were just talking about Terrence Cooks, and we can, if we want to go back to that Houston camp at all, we can, but Terrence Cooks is a Houston guy, and there was a big story in the Chronicle this week about Kenneth Murray and all the work he's done, like the training and all that stuff that he's doing. if I'm OU, I'm buying 20 copies of that and sending it to him as soon as I can put it in the mail. Like, I mean, I want everybody. I mean, and
what
like
year
I said,
do you
Cooks
think this
doesn't
is,
have to leave his
Josh?
town. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not that he's going to read the article.
I thought it was a really good
We
idea.
can look at the picture.
Son of a bitch.
Whatever. Damn it.
Murdoch, you motherfucker.
We haven't old man Josh in a while, okay? Let me have my moments.
I mean, you figured Neville was going to get drafted anyway, but based on what he did now all of a sudden he's a first-round projection. Like, that never would have happened heading into last year.
I am legitimately curious to see, with Murray, vertical, broad, standing broad jump. I never get too worked up about the 3-cone ever since Jordan Thomas broke the record at the Combine.
Shattered it.
Destroyed it.
Somebody,
we had to do a double take. We're like, is that really correct?
Somebody, like, did they crack the machine or did they?
I think that time alone got him that year in the CFL.
Yeah.
They were like, well, God, he's got to be good. Look at this 3-cone he ran.
But no,
he still can't cover anybody.
And Neville should blow away people in the bench. I mean, like, that was the one thing we knew about Neville before anything was that he could bench 500 or whatever it was. So, I mean, there's not anything he shouldn't just be awesome at the Combine.
Well,
I've got like 4.81 for him on a 40. That's my guess.
Legitimate electronic time.
In a way, the thing about Neville, and I don't know, I probably had kind of speaking out of turn. How much is Chase Young doing at the Combine this week?
Nothing.
Oh, he isn't doing anything.
He's not doing
okay.
Just
I was going to say,
measured and talking to teams.
Okay.
That's all he's doing.
Because I was going to say he would be the guy that kind of steals some headlines from Neville, I would say, if he were to work out. But without him working out, there's no doubt about that.
Which I really don't understand that.
You like Burrow
I don't
not
either. When you're a
not,
freak,
not
when
throwing?
you're a freak of nature, I go back and forth about the quarterbacks because I can understand. You want to work with your receivers. You want to have your timing right. Like, I kind of get it. A defensive lineman, just go test, man. Like Chase Young, you're a freak. Just go be a freak, and it's going to be all good.
See, Baker worked out. Kyler did not. So they both went number one.
Yeah. It's easy for a quarterback not to work out because you're not relying on somebody else. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to have somebody out there to catch balls, right?
Yep.
And
Baker,
that kind of proves your point, though, Josh.
Baker needed to work out. He needed to go out there because there were so many questions about his arm. They needed to see him throw against all those other guys. And I knew, like, if he just went out there and threw, nobody would have any questions about his arm, and that's how it worked out.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just like we talked about leading into that one, guys, that once people had him in a room, they were going to fall in love with the guy. Like,
somebody was. Maybe not everybody, but somebody was.
Yeah, you're right. That's fair. But, like, he wasn't going to be who they thought he was. Like, he's not some turd guy. Like,
he wasn't Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, he's brash, and he's got some confidence, maybe some cockiness, whatever. But he's not like a shithead. Like, he's not a bad dude that's going to embarrass you or anything like that.
As long as he's not a Cheesecake Factory.
Wow.
So how
that just kind of died, didn't it?
Yes.
Because
I think as soon as everybody saw that skank, they were like, this can't be.
She's not doming up Baker Mayfield, all right?
Yeah.
Even
an NFL quarterback. He can go trolling a lot harder than that.
So. It's a bad indictment even to have that out there.
How confident do you feel that?
Or she did, and he just is dirty.
Sooners will have 3 first-round draft picks.
Ooh.
About 75%.
Ooh. Really?
I'm pretty strong.
I don't know on Gallimore. I'm not sure.
You think Murray's a surefire first rounder?
Yes.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Murray
Especially
and Lamb for sure. Yes.
When he tests, it's over.
Oklahoma having 2 first-round draft picks on the defensive side of the ball has not happened in my lifetime. 1984 is the last time it happened. Rick Bryan and do you know who? Here's a hint.
You said on the radio, so I can't.
Yeah, Bob, don't answer. Here's a hint. Much like Sherry Cole, he stole money while working at Oklahoma. Much like Sherry Cole, he stole money.
1984.
Oh, Jackie Shipp.
Nice.
Very nice, Josh.
Well, he didn't steal.
I'm
was
just
good
kidding.
For a long
time.
I'm just kidding.
For the last few years, you could make that claim.
It's more of a funny thing to say.
As soon as
that's like our locker room talk thing. We're just joshing.
That was a mainstay of Sooner Scoop. Just joshing.
Well, I still get that from Len Bias. He'd be like, "What time for a just Josh?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, I wouldn't even know where to start anymore." Had that shitty picture of me, like it looked terrible. That graphic was just awful. But guys, I hadn't even thought about it until I was looking at Bob's story on the front page of Soonerscoop.com. OU is going to have more defensive players drafted than offensive players.
Yeah.
I mean, if Parnell Motley gets picked, which I think he will. I wonder when the last time
he
that
deserves it. That would be the biggest crime. That would be That would be Tony Jefferson-ish.
Oh, to go undrafted?
Yeah.
I can't see that
with
happening.
the year he had.
Yeah.
If I'm him, I'm like, just put the Big 12 championship tape on and watch Denzel Mims just get shut down.
In a way, I think that, kind of what you just said, Josh, emphasizes even more so what kind of rebuilding year they were having to go through on the offensive side of the ball last year. And not a rebuilding year, but, I think it was Ja or somebody put up on the board the
Neil.
It was Neil. Was it Neil?
It was Neil.
The 2017 offense and all the guys that have been drafted off of that team.
Yeah.
It's an incredible list.
By the way, real quick, I want to get back to something with the Combine and what's going on. But want to remind you guys, MidFirst Bank is the exclusive provider of the OU credit card. Make sure you go to midfirst.com/U40. That's midfirst.com/U40. If you go there, it'll take you to a special page where you can apply for the OU Rewards card. A lot of great deals with that. You can get 15,000 bonus points by spending $1,000 in the first 90 days from account opening. Also, 0% APR for the first year. And you can register for a chance to win ultimate game day experiences, all kinds of stuff with your rewards credit card. So go sign up. It's got the big OU logo right on there when you get the card, so everybody knows every time you shop that you are a huge OU fan. So midfirst.com/U40. Thanks to midfirst.com for being our presenting sponsor, title sponsor for the Unofficial 40 podcast. Now, one thing, that comes out inevitably, and it's kind of like, we talked about a lot. Everybody's just waiting to be outraged by things. Look, I don't think that, Lamar Jackson got the whole, are you going to work out at, wide receiver and stuff like that. I guess it's just because we're so close to it. We've seen him play, and we've seen Baker Mayfield. We've seen Kyler Murray. We know that Jalen Hurts is not one of those guys. Like, he's got some issues throwing the football. I do think he's more Terrell Pryor than, Lamar Jackson. I just think, I don't know if he can be a quarterback in the NFL long term. But that's not really saying, that's not a negative. I mean, look how many guys are in the XFL right now and still aren't that good at quarterback. Like Matt McGloin, I think a lot of people thought he was going to be a pretty good quarterback coming out of college or had the chance to be. He's terrible. And I don't know if Kevin Gilbride's just a moron. I think that's probably trending in that.
Yeah, that could probably be.
When you get punched by Buddy Ryan on the sideline.
That was like 93.
Yeah.
Whew.
Now who's bringing up old shit?
He's old, Josh. Yeah, it's tough to make it in this league as a quarterback. There's not many people capable of playing that position.
Well, there's not enough.
There's
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not every NFL team has a great quarterback.
You have to be really good.
It's going to be interesting. And Jalen Hurts, it might just be the perfect time for him that Taysom Hill did what he did this past season.
But let's put Taysom Hill behind center and see how much Saints love him.
That's what I was getting at, too, is the fact that not
for
only...
a full game, yeah.
I don't think what Taysom Hill has done in New Orleans, can be replicated, because I do think that Sean Payton has done certain things. Like, there aren't Sean Paytons just running all over the NFL now. But at the same time, I do think that if you're going to ask me, can Jalen Hurts help an NFL team? I'd probably say yes. But can he be a guy that leads a team to a Super Bowl? I don't think so.
I mean, look, I've seen very few players in college as good as Robert Griffin III. he's not good enough to be an NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's amazing.
And he was one of the best college quarterbacks. Like, walking away from Floyd Casey that night,
oh, God.
it's been a long time. I don't know if I've had that same feeling as in thinking I just watched somebody win the Heisman Trophy tonight.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it really, Kyler's probably the one guy that made you feel like that.
Yeah, and that's because he was playing with a historically bad defense.
Yeah.
Like, he literally, every time he touched the ball, they had to score
And maybe you kinda
because
had
they were
that-
going to lose a football game.
Maybe you kind of had that feeling a little bit after Baker beat Tech because that was kind of late in the year.
He had
It was
already won the
such a-
Heisman, but Burrow in the Peach Bowl for me.
Yeah.
He'd already won it.
Oh,
though.
yeah. No, that was definitely a Heisman moment.
I
Yeah.
was like, holy cow.
Without a doubt.
All right, I'll admit it. This guy's pretty good.
After the 8th touchdown, you kind of got to give it to
There's
him.
sometime in between the 5th one and me thinking about jumping off the top of the fucking stadium.
Let me just say for guys, don't go back and listen to the 2 or 3 podcasts before the Peach Bowl.
Oh, God.
boy.
Well, those
Way
never
to
happened.
throw
They've
us
been
under the bus, Josh.
Those never happened.
Hey, we're all there. Freezing Cold Takes would have a field day with some of the things we were
Jesus,
saying there. It
I'm
was not
so
good.
embarrassed for myself.
We should tag them. It wouldn't be a bad marketing opportunity just to throw that out
I
there.
don't want that marketing dollar. I'm sorry.
I don't know. It works out for Colin Cowherd every week.
With his Vince Young Tebow comparison.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. Do you see that?
No,
I haven't.
It's out there now that basically Cowherd said that he compared Vince Young
to Tebow,
Tim Tebow
when Vince
he
is
was
older.
coming out.
When Vince is older.
It's like,
than
that's
Tebow.
impossible.
That doesn't make sense.
It'd be
That is
impossible for Vince Young to remind him of Tim Tebow. That's just
He saw him in high school.
Wow.
God, he just says shit. It's
capital
amazing.
K period.
So anyway, but yeah, I'm not here for the outrage about Jalen Hurts. I mean, I understand that.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous
I think
that
the
he had to
people that
stand
are
up there
most-
and get asked those questions.
Yeah, but I think the people with the most outrage are the people that just haven't seen him play. Because it's a legitimate football argument. It is.
Eddie, you don't think that's a real? I think that's a completely valid question. I think his best future is like Taysom Hill.
Would you say Taysom Hill's a wide receiver?
I think he is a. I don't know. What would you call him? I wouldn't call him a quarterback.
No.
The Taysom Hill position?
He's an H-back.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's
Hill.
almost its own thing.
I've never been around Taysom Hill, but Taysom Hill just seems like he is a much like well put together guy than Jalen
thicker,
Hurts.
right? He's
I don't know. Like, might be more of a Blake Bell than a Jalen Hurts.
He is the next evolution of the Wildcat quarterback, really. I mean,
I could buy that.
okay.
because I think at some point, like, God, how much would it benefit the XFL to have some type of Taysom Hill with their extra point system?
Yeah.
The XFL is the kind. If the NFL ever moved to that system, they would evolve a certain quarterback just for that.
Just for 2-point play
Just
or
for
for
extra
conversion
points, yeah.
plays. I could definitely see that.
So, does anybody know off the top of their head what Jalen came in at the combine? Because I've got Hill.
Yes.
Right in front of me.
I could pull it up.
6'2.5", 230. Would you not say that's almost dead on Jalen Hurts?
No, I think it probably is. I think he came in at, I thought it was 6'2" something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4.4440, and that's after he blew his knee twice at BYU.
Okay, what'd you say? 6'2", 240?
6'2.5", 230.
You're saying that's Taysom Hill or that's Jalen Hurts?
That's Taysom Hill.
That's Hill.
Okay.
That's Hill.
Jalen Hurts came in at 6'1", 222.
He's
So,
bigger.
a little bit
Taysom Hill's
smaller.
bigger.
And I think 4.44. I think that's probably a little fast for Jalen, but I don't think it's crazy.
Yeah, Taysom Hill he's kind of like a Toby Gerhardt that can throw.
That's the
not
most.
terrible.
Is it because he's white, Carrie?
No,
I
mean I didn't call him.
He's a grinder. He's a coach's kid. The smart, high IQ.
No, he's
A
just
motorhead.
he's a
Kerry wasn't
going to
call him Rex Burkhead.
Oh yeah, I mean
No, I wasn't.
Super Bowl champion Rex Burkhead.
I know no Nebraska fans aren't listening to this podcast, so I can say whatever I want.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's a fair question. I think it. I mean,
now I do think if you are talking about Jalen Hurts as Lamar Jackson's backup and he's going to run that offense, which look, he's not. He can take I think he's going to be able to take a beating more than Robert Griffin can, because that's where he went wrong. He just physically could not play that style in the NFL because he wasn't big enough. Jalen Hurts, he'll have to bulk up a little bit, but he's not far off. I mean, he could get to 230 without a problem. But, I mean, let's face it, he didn't exactly handle the physical toll of running the ball a lot in college all that well.
He put the ball on the ground quite a few times.
And
that's the one thing I never expected to say.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Jalen...
I mean, isn't that the funny thing about Jalen Hurts? Like, the style... I'm sorry to interrupt, but the style that he's playing, he would be asked to play with if he were with Baltimore, he might be undone not by his throwing or his running, but the fact of just ball security.
Absolutely. That was the biggest surprise out of the whole Jalen Hurts experience, was the fact that there were points...
We were worried about interceptions, not fumbles.
There were points in November that you just couldn't trust him. And they did.
At halftime of the Baylor game, you were wondering if this guy should even be the quarterback anymore.
And the other thing about Hurts and his transition into the NFL, there's just too many times that, whether it be watching at the game or being at the game, being down on the field, or watching the game back, there's just too many times that he just misses guys. And I don't think that that's something that you just wake up and all of a sudden you start hitting guys when the game gets even faster. I think he can make almost every throw. Now, he's not going to be the most accurate guy that's out there, but I think he can make every throw. It's just a matter of, can he make it when he has to? And, we saw perfect example is the play against Iowa State that doesn't get picked off at about the 45-ish yard line over on the east side of the stadium. That's a pick six in the NFL 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
It just is.
And it was crazy because it was Iowa State's arguably best defensive player that blew the play.
Was that Eisworth?
It was very, very
good.
And
let's face it, he had a little bit of Trevor Knight in him too, where he would make the worst play at the worst time.
Kerry, oh my God. I was literally sitting on, did you guys feel like there were some Trevor Knight points in that year where you were like, if it can go wrong, it's going to go catastrophically wrong right now? Like that, it was on the tip of my tongue. That's crazy. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. At the moment he couldn't make the wrong choice, it was almost always the minute he did.
Joke's on us. Trevor Knight's marrying a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader.
Nobody ever said he's not a beautiful man.
Yeah.
That's why he BFJs.
It's over. Those days are over.
I know. It's going to have to be retired. I wonder who the new one is. I wonder who the new BFJ is. We'll figure that out. We got time.
All right.
I have a couple of
by the way,
ideas, but I don't want to say.
Okay, Josh, we suspended you in animate. We animated suspended animation. That's what it is.
Yep.
Let me ask you, just Cody Jackson, watching him in Houston. Any I don't know. What's your takeaway there? Was he clearly head and shoulders above most guys? Was he? Was there anything about size or just speed or anything that gave you any pause or actually made you feel better about what OU's getting there?
I came away feeling a little better, honestly. I think I've been pretty open with you guys, with everybody on the board, that I have some questions about Cody Jackson. I saw him twice last year, and I think he might have had 50 yards receiving combined in those 2 games. And that's not all on him. In one game he was facing Shadow Creek, which was the eventual state champions, had one of the best defenses in the state. There were some things that were beyond his control in that game. They just didn't have a lot of time to throw. But at the same time, I just didn't see him at times getting the separation I wanted him to see. I thought his route running looked cleaner when I saw him on Sunday. He had a comeback on a play that we had video of. Is a great look, kind of him running a little comeback route, catches it, kind of falling out of bounds. I thought you saw some of the finer points in his game starting to get better, because we all know Cody Jackson can run vertically with anybody. I mean, he's got tons of speed. That's why OU loves him, and that's great. They can use him in that role even if those other things don't emerge. But at the same time, it's kind of like what you see with Charleston Rambo. You've got to become more than just that guy. You can't just be the vertical threat. If you want to be a dominant receiver, you're going to have to fine-tune other parts of your game. And I think you're starting to see that from him. And I think maybe even a recognition from him that, like, I've got to do more than that. I've got to be not just the guy that runs 40 yards and, comes back to the huddle and waits to do it again the next play. So I like what I saw of him. I thought he was clearly the best receiver on hand. The MVP of the position award went to a kid from Katy, a tight end guy that was really very impressive. The receivers coach there just raved about him. And actually talking to that receivers coach, I talked to him a little bit about Cody as well. And he was like, man, it's all there. It just, at times he'll fight with the ball a little bit. You can tell he's not as natural a receiver as like CeeDee Lamb was in high school, where if you threw it within, his area code, CeeDee was going to come down with it. Cody is maybe more physically gifted, but doesn't have some of the fine tuning yet that CeeDee had. So I think it's just going to be him continuing to work and kind of develop. And I'm excited we get to see him at 5-star, really see him against some elite corners, kind of watch him work, and just kind of see where he is, because I don't think he's really faced anything like that yet.
Last thing from me is there anyone there that was so good that maybe wasn't on OU's radar before but needs to be now?
The guy that I really like, I'm glad you asked that, Bob, because I wanted to work him in somehow, was Kelvin Banks, offensive lineman from Summer Creek High School here in Houston, and is a guy that is currently committed to Oklahoma State, but he's a 2022 guy. I had a chance to talk with him a little bit during the camp. Oklahoma is aware of him. I'm pretty certain Bill Bedenbaugh has already come by to see him this spring, and I think definitely does like him. But so far hasn't offered, hasn't gotten anything too serious down the road. But I would be pretty surprised if Oklahoma didn't eventually offer him. He's a big, long guy, very athletic, kind of rough around the edges, still has a lot to refine in his game. But, I mean, he's a guy in the middle of his sophomore year of high school. It's not that crazy or anything. So I like him a lot. I think he's a guy that could be maybe that next guy in Houston to pick up an offer before too terribly long.
I will put his highlights up from the camp on Sunday. I don't think I've done that yet, so I'll put that on the board.
Well, God, Eddie, you've only run like 7 content items, buddy. Let's do something here.
The one thing I hadn't thought of.
Damn it.
Get your shit together.
Well, I thought that's the guy that you told me, don't worry about him. He's an Oklahoma State commit. Him.
in those exact words.
I think I said something on the end of,
and he was doing like
there was more beyond.
He was on a
that,
video chat, and he was doing the like the throat slash type thing.
That was from our live feed that we just chose not to send out to everybody, so it's fine.
The Grossy feed.
All right. Anything else that you wanted to hit on from camp before we move on to other business real quick, Josh?
RCS LA this weekend, anything to expect out of that?
No, the guy that I'm hoping will be there, and I need to check over the roster and see if he's finalized his plans, is Jalen Davies, the cornerback from Mater Dei. I kind of keep hearing Oklahoma's making some inroads with him. Is probably a guy that Oklahoma will get an official visit from. So we'll kind of see what goes on there. But, there's Roy Manning, I know we talked about him a little bit earlier. They're doing some positive work at corner. There's some good stuff happening out there right now.
Is Brown going to be there? Roderick Brown?
Yes, I think he is supposed to be, and obviously there is a lot of buzz right now about him in Oklahoma. I talked to Roderick a little bit this week. I don't get the impression anything's imminent with him. I do think Oklahoma's in a great spot with him. But I get the impression he's a 2022 guy. He's just not in any big hurry. Yeah. He's going to take his time. But I think Oklahoma. I honestly think him being at Mater Dei is probably better for Oklahoma because there's more chances to get by, not more chances, but more incentive to get by because you're going to be there anyway. And he's around other guys OU is recruiting, and it's just more opportunity for Oklahoma to kind of make their presence felt.
And it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, things are in the good position with Oklahoma right now, and you're just now putting DeMarco Murray and Jamar Cain on staff and getting them involved, being out there, making their inroads. So I would think it could only get better from this point on.
Oh, I agree. Because, you got to remember, when Cain took the job, I want to say probably within like 5 days, they sent out 5 or 6 West Coast kind of defensive end type offers. So you're just starting to see those guys getting used to, whether it's talking to Jamar Cain at all or just talking to him with a, I guess a bigger stick to swing, you'd say.
I don't know how you feel about this, Josh, but I mean, we talked about it. We all talked about this, about how OU seemed to kind of get away from, the California roots that they had built. And, I think a lot of that was, I can't remember his whole name, Tony dying and
Tony Perry
dying, and and just not really having that presence out there. And the guys from Fresno really didn't pan out. I mean, that was another part of it.
Well, it depends on what you're looking at. On the football field, no. But
okay.
LJ Moore
Bouncy
Moore made quite the strides in the angel dust / prostitution ring.
You always
in Oklahoma
regret
City.
bringing up LJ Moore.
Because I think it's one of the funniest stories.
It is.
It's not funny because
in OU football history.
It's just an incredible story.
It's Florida,
Eddie,
man.
Are you saying you see a future for him as like a talent evaluator?
I mean, I don't know. Depending on the before and after picture of
maybe
the poor cheerleader would beg to differ on his evaluation.
She didn't get
but
better looking under his care.
Well, meth usually does that to a person. So.
So, yes, Fresno has been mixed reviews.
We'll see how Caleb Kelly goes. Good luck to Caleb Kelly this year.
But here's the point I was getting. Do you feel like, tell me if I'm wrong, this might be my Colin Coward take of the day. Did Lincoln Riley and his staff get a little, as Josh and I say this, we have a big run at Sooner Scoop, we get sub-drunk. Did they get a little commitment drunk thinking, oh, well, we're recruiting so well. When we first took over, and we had that 2019 class, like we can go into the Southeast and we can get some guys, and we don't need to mess as much with California. We'll go tangle with the big boys. We think we can do that. Do you think some of that was there with this? That maybe they got a little commitment drunk?
I don't know if it was like we're going to go into the Southeast, because I think Oklahoma is pretty realistic. Like, it's got to be some unique scenarios.
But even in Texas, I mean, you had the losses to Ohio State and Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm. But
adding
in Southern
Beamer,
California,
adding Beamer puts you in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it also gave them, to a degree, DC. I think that's the thing that's gone underrated about Beamer, is how much that's changed.
Yeah.
Washington, D.C., the DMV area is huge for Oklahoma right now. I mean, they might get 3 or 4 of their more highly rated recruits in this class out of that area. I mean, that's we'll see. I mean, it's early yet. But, I mean, you talk about Travion Henderson, you talk about Caleb Williams. But to kind of get back to your point, I don't think there's any question that Oklahoma let loose of what they had in Southern California. And you can't help but wonder if that is, I mean, what would have happened? Because USC is way down. I mean, the fight against USC is easier now than it would have ever been.
And UCLA is non-existent as a competitor.
It's not even a fight anymore. People aren't fighting
UCLA.
USC.
Is a dead
That's how
program.
bad it is.
But I mean, Oregon that you're fighting.
Even
Oregon's your biggest battle.
Even when UCLA had Jim Moore as their coach, and they weren't any
Be
good.
nice to him.
Whatever. Even when they were very mediocre, they were still keeping some kids at home that OU won. I mean, it was still a battle with Buki in the end. I mean,
UCLA came into Oklahoma and got Waraboko, went to Dallas and got Jamabo. I mean, they were legit. They went to Alabama and took a linebacker from Alabama. Like, I mean, UCLA had it going there for a little while, but now
beaches.
I mean, and you think about it. Like, if you're a high school kid, okay, sure, you can stay in the same time zone, but Eugene, Oregon, and Los Angeles, you're going to tell me that's that different? Just socially, just everything than Los Angeles to Norman?
If you like
that's not
hikes
some
and
huge
trees.
I mean, do I feel like the guys at St. John Bosco or any of the inner city schools are like, God, I'm missing the hikes I could take back home? Like, no, I don't give a shit about
Norman
that.
just doesn't have the trails that I like.
Yeah. Oh, God, Thunderbird. It's just there's not enough elevation over here.
The day somebody says that, they need to drop that person immediately. It's not good. Not good for the program.
But I mean, Thunderbird. To be fair, you never know what you could find around Thunderbird.
Well,
it could be
look,
some meth. It could be a hooker.
Yeah, but
anything.
hey, Oregon
Well, if you
had,
find the hooker there, she's already dead, and you can just take the meth.
Oregon had Colt Lyerla. I mean,
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. He's in prison. He's in prison, right?
I believe so.
I believe that's right. And one of my all-time crushes. And speaking of a blast from the past, Barry Every loved that kid more than anybody. He loves Colt Lyerla.
And Colt Lyerla loved the coca.
Yes.
Wasn't he like living? Well, his story's out there, isn't it?
I think.
I guess I'm not incriminating anybody if he's already in prison, but wasn't he like?
You already have L.J. Moore after you. What's one more felon?
He's not coming back to Oklahoma City to take me out unless he's already here, which maybe we should delete some of this if he's living in Oklahoma City. I now don't feel safe. I've always thought somebody's going to kill me when I go down to the garage in the morning. I'm just giving you an idea on how to off me, but just wait for me to leave in the morning. There's nobody else up at godforsaken time. Me and Carrie are the only people up in the state. Was he like doing drugs with his mom though? Colt Lyerla, like before high school games? Wasn't that always like a rumor out there?
Oh God, it wouldn't shock me.
Josh was privy to the Lyerla, rumors more than I was.
Because he was. Was he close to coming to Oklahoma?
They were a contender because if you remember, he came once or twice because NUC had their national combine, like their 5-star challenge, basically at Oklahoma, and so he had kind of come and seen the campus, and I knew he was interested, but then he kind of went off the map his senior year, and nobody knew why, and then we're like, oh shit, he got in a bunch of trouble. Like it was like he didn't just vanish to the reporters, he vanished to everybody, and then he ended up at Oregon. And it seemed like Oregon was going to kind of drag him kicking and screaming to being the success he should have been. And then he screwed that up, too.
Yeah.
Because he was just starting to get going.
As screwed up as he was, yeah, he could have been a great football player.
Oh, God. I mean, he'd be in that top 5 tight end in football conversation. Like, Colt Lyerla was special. Like, that dude was a freak, but just couldn't get out of his own way.
All right. Real quick, let's touch on kind of like this whole, obviously OU is building toward the spring game, March 18th. We have practice times, and Lincoln Riley is going to have a press conference on March 9th. Is that right?
Yep, Monday. Yep.
So it'll all get started then. So, and, really good access. We'll have, plenty of stuff for you every week, except for the spring break when everybody's gone. So that was really good to see this week. And really, though, I mean, spring has kind of become something where they set up the recruiting first, and then they kind of go from there. And I think that's why it's taken so long to kind of get us a schedule of how things are going to work, because they want to know, okay, we're going to have a bunch of kids in here and there. But aren't there a couple of dates in the spring that they're setting up to be pretty big? Isn't there one weekend besides the spring game they're also kind of pushing for? Like, aren't a lot of kids announcing, like, I'm visiting Oklahoma on such and such date?
Well, the biggest one so far is this coming weekend.
Right.
Okay.
But
the March 1st one, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to
give us a little ball tickle. Tell us what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I think the one that's obvious that everybody's going to get excited about is Latrell McCutcheon, the cornerback from Austin LBJ. That is Rivals 100 guy, committed to Alabama. Has been committed to Alabama for probably close to a year now, at least since the summer. I mean, it's been a long time going. Oklahoma's making a real run at him, and I think we touched on it way back when he had made some tweet about I'm going to shock the world someday or something along those lines, and like Drew Hill and Lincoln Riley and several other people liked it, and you were like, well, what the hell's that about? And just talking to some people, Oklahoma has made an impression on him. I think there is an absolute chance for Oklahoma to get in this race and be a serious contender, and maybe more than that. We will kind of see what happens. This weekend's obviously going to tell us a lot more, but this isn't a guy just coming on a token trip. He really is interested. He wants to see what Oklahoma has, and I think the fact that Oklahoma never shied away even after he committed to Alabama, I think kind of resonated with him. I think he liked it.
Potential flip this weekend?
I I don't know if it'll happen this weekend, but if you told me
it'd be next
within
weekend.
the next 2 weeks something happened, it wouldn't shock me. I don't think that's crazy.
Would that be enough of a say that does happen? Say Latrell McCutcheon does flip. Would that be enough to make a blanket statement that? And I know it'd be very reactionary, I guess, but would that be enough to say that what Roy Manning, what Alex Grinch is doing on that side of the ball is starting to reach some people, or has that message already been sent out as far as what they were able to do with Bryson Washington and that Joshua Eaton, that group from last year?
I think you can. I thought last year you started to see some reason to believe, like the Perrion Winfrey commitment. I mean, people, because that happened so early and that kid never really wavered, everybody kind of forgets about him. Like that guy had Florida State, Alabama. I mean, he had huge offers and picked Oklahoma and never seemed to doubt it for a second. So I think there is a growing belief in what they're doing. And I think what you can see is if you can give Oklahoma, like if that production starts really getting going and they're putting out quality defense and you're starting to get these more NFL draft picks and all these things can come together, I think it's pretty clear Alex Grinch, Roy Manning, Brian Odom, Calvin Thibodeau, and I've got every reason to believe Jamar Cain as well can recruit. And they're going to be fine if you give them more tools to do it, or I guess if you want to say they give themselves more tools to recruit, they're going to take off and be in really good shape. I think if you can keep the majority of that group together 2 or 3 years from now, the talent on this defense I think will look very, very different than what we're seeing right now.
How long did it take you guys to realize he was on Friday Night Tykes?
Oh no. Latrell McCutcheon?
Yes, season 4.
You're talking to the president of Little Tykes and Josh McQuishan. I'm surprised that wasn't the first thing he noticed.
I'm just learning this, and I will tell you, I can't stand that show.
You got to drop him.
I only watched season 1 and I loved it. And then I was on DirecTV and the package I had didn't include what
Esquire is what it was called.
Yeah, I didn't have that anymore or something. So I didn't get to watch it.
Esquire's something else now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Close.
Was he on the good team?
I'm disappointed.
I don't remember, but he was a star of like season 3 or 4.
That's pretty funny.
And I was like, where have I ever heard this name before? That's it.
It's a quality name. Latrell McCutcheon is that's an NFL name.
And then on a serious note, Josh,
we'll see if he has an athletic head.
That's
but I feel like that's
a name.
That's a good name.
Has he recovered from his injury?
He says that he's getting it sounds like he is confident. I think he told me it was 3 weeks or something before he can start getting a little more serious with some of the stuff he can do. But I mean, like he's up, moving around on it, all those kind of things. Like it's progressing the way it should. He's just having to wait the time that he is, required. But it sounds like everything is moving in the right direction. Is going to be okay. I don't think he's going to do spring practice at LBJ, but I do plan to get out and see him as soon as he's active and doing something, whether that's this summer with 7-on-7 stuff for the school or whatever that may be. But I'm going to definitely try and go get a look at him and kind of let everybody have a up close look. And obviously, watching him, you get to watch another visitor from this weekend, Andrew Makuba, who's making his second trip up, another LBJ defensive back that I really like on tape. I think he is a guy. It's not hard to see why. I believe in the last week he's picked up offers from like Auburn. Is A&M offered him yet? I'm trying to pull up his profile as we sit here and talk about it. But, I mean, he is a guy that is really starting to take off as more people know about him. Because I want to say somebody had told me, like, last year was his first year of football or his first year of high school football or something. I don't know his whole story yet. But, like, Auburn, Ole Miss, Nebraska, Tennessee, he's got some good offers. Alabama has offered him. So, I mean, like, there are – and he's now making his second trip up. So if you could, if you wanted to go in with him, you'd have to think that helps your chance with McCutcheon because they've talked about wanting to play together. You go down that road, then you have 2 of your defensive back spots filled, and you can really start putting a hard pressure on the guys like Ja'Kalen Johnson or Jalen Davies, who we already talked about. You can really start trying to put together a DB class that could totally change the narrative of your secondary.
I'm wondering if we're not Eddie, if we're not, if we don't have a little bit of subconscious about Latrell McCutcheon, because you got Seth Latrell, Daniel McCutcheon.
Former all-time OU great baseball pitcher.
Yeah. Maybe that's clouding our judgment of how good a name Latrell McCutcheon is.
I think it's a pretty good name.
It's pretty good.
I think it's going to hold up for the test of time.
Bob, I want to ask you, because you do a very good job of kind of looking at things from a bigger picture. I think you're better about that than I am. Does it surprise you when you look at our visitor list how many like 2022, 2023 guys are on this list? Like, it's not 2021 crazy.
No.
Like, they are clearly bringing in a lot of young guys to start even getting those conversations.
Well, they got to get ahead of the bagmen.
Well, and like when Eddie posted the black unicorn with Ruben Owens, people are like, why? It's like, this is what OU is doing. They are talking to 2023 right now, and I think it's because of that recruiting calendar. They spent the entire month, January and December, figuring out 2021. There will be still some 2021 offers going out, but they did the bulk of that work already, and now they're starting. Okay, who are the guys we want to get a jump start for 2022 and 2023? It's just weird how the calendar is accelerated and gets younger and younger every single time.
They want to get ahead of the game.
That's what you have to do, though, isn't it? Isn't that what we've been sitting here saying for 3 years now? Is like, if you want to make a difference in recruiting, you have to develop these relationships.
By the time those kids get to college, Georgia's offensive coordinator is going to be Alabama's nutritionist.
Maybe.
Is that like the biggest? It's just kind of funny. It's kind of like throwing a, if somebody throws a pack of firecrackers in a schoolyard.
Can't do that nowadays.
You can't do that anymore. We weren't the ones that threw it, but we'll damn sure be the ones that watch the internet video to see how it works out. Like, that's what I like about it. It's not us having to deal with it, but just this battle of, we won the fight against. We took one. Saban took one on the chin. We stole his strength coach and made him our special teams coach.
I like the Alabama fans that were in, I think it was Andy Staples' Twitter yesterday.
Yeah, about trying to convince him it wasn't a big deal.
He wasn't any good anyways. It's like,
if Saban really wanted to keep him, he would have.
That was a good one, too. If Saban wanted him here, he'd be here. God damn it.
Yeah. Alabama was paying him more money than any other strength coach in the country because he was so shit. That's why that was happening.
It is kind of interesting how late some of these coaching changes have happened, I guess.
Well, they don't care anymore because the calendar's so screwed up. They just do what they want when they want.
No, they do.
Yep.
And, you saw, obviously, the Mel Tucker stuff, and I think we all agreed that not only was Alex Grinch not going to Colorado, I don't know how much was actually even there to begin with.
I think I'd hire Alabama's strength coach before I'd hire Carl Durrell to coach my team, by the way.
That's just a shockingly bad hire. But I think that's just, as a whole, the Pac-12 is dead. The Pac-12...
Yeah, they hired a search firm that recommended Carl Durrell to be their head coach.
The coldest take of all time, and I was 100% in this group, was the people that thought OU needs to head out west. Like, could that...
I was one of them.
That would have been worst decision the school had ever made.
Well...
Besides building an honors college.
At the time, it was a different time, though.
Yeah, I think it... it's been
we
poorly
didn't know.
and managed.
Larry Scott screwed up that conference's TV deal so poorly.
Yep.
Now it's a shit conference. Then if OU and OSU or OU and Texas had gone and joined them, it would have totally changed that conference.
Larry Scott makes Bob Bowlesby look like, I don't know, Paul Tagliabue or Roger Goodell.
He was at the peak last night. They had the entire Big 12 outfit out there.
Actually, you could say Bob Bowlesby makes Larry Scott look like Bud Selig. How about that?
Oh, yeah. That's not something you never want to be compared to.
It's a tie.
Would we be saying this though about the Pac-12 if USC had
if they weren't shit right now?
If they had won a national championship in the last 5 years, would we be saying this about the Pac-12?
If Oregon stays on this track and USC comes back, and let's just say Arizona State becomes like Texas Tech for them, I think that's their ceiling with Herm Edwards. He's getting good players in there.
Mm-hmm. Every fourth or fifth year could really compete.
I think that's fair.
That could make them better than the Big 12 in a down year. But it's still not going to help their revenue because their TV deal sucks and the interest sucks.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, so you throw in Texas, Oklahoma to that roster of teams where, and the pinnacle that USC and Oregon have clearly proven they can reach. Oklahoma and Texas being who they are. Throw in, I don't know, Kansas for basketball or something, and you tell me they couldn't get a good TV deal. I mean, that's a lot of country.
You have Oklahoma and Texas. That's going to carry your TV deal. But
you'd have Los Angeles, Dallas, Houston.
But Texas is not only Texas, but OU also. They both that up. The possibility. By the way, that's
not wrong.
Double-digit F-bombs of the politics.
Oh yeah, it literally. I don't see. Carrie, do you see
on Ash
where
Wednesday
that's even possible anymore?
Carrie,
no. I don't know what Eddie just said either. So
it's Ash Wednesday, and we're just dropping F-bombs all over the place.
Well, you're Catholic.
I'm going to have to go to confession.
Yeah, I bet.
I like that.
I'm going
Eddie
tonight.
said it like he wasn't the primary culprit of all the F-bombs.
It was Tony Grossi that was.
Yes, he forced us to do it. Tony, you now need to apologize for that.
We just keep saying what he said.
No, but
I won't go down that path.
I'm sorry. Josh, re-ask your question that you asked me again.
No, I was going to say, do you even see a window anymore where Oklahoma would head to the Pac-12? Like, I can't think of any scenario where that makes sense anymore.
No, not when they've continually gone to the college football playoff in the situation they're in.
If I'm Oklahoma, I'm working toward the Big Ten. If I'm going to move,
Big Ten or SEC.
I don't think the base is there for the SEC. I don't think that makes sense.
But you know what? Nebraska scares the shit out of me going to the Big Ten.
You're not wrong. I would say if I'm heading the Big Ten, I'm taking Texas with me because Texas doesn't want to go to the SEC. I know they don't. There's no way
you
they
just
want to
can't.
go
I mean,
that route.
look. Here's where I am today on this. I'm not for going to the Pac-12. I just think that you have to stay more than conference affiliation, strength, all that stuff. And Clemson is a perfect example of this. You have to stay as close to your recruiting base as possible. And you have to play at least half your games within those borders. You just do. That's more important than your TV deal. You always want to make as much money as possible. And the Big 12 will never be making as much money as the Big 10 or the SEC. But their program is still going to have a chance to be really good year after year as long as they are playing most of their games inside the borders of their recruiting base. Nebraska and Missouri to me Arkansas proves that once you get out of your recruiting base and play most of your games outside of that recruiting base, it kills your program.
But I mean, so okay, say you're right. So what big base does Oklahoma have in the SEC other than Texas?
Oh, I'm not saying it's the idea. To me, the ideal situation is the Big 12 now. It just is.
You're probably right.
And I was there with everybody else because, look, I'm still down on the Big 12. I still think it's a shit league. I still get frustrated. I mean, that home schedule, if I was a season ticket holder, I'd get pissed off every year my season tickets came in and that schedule came out.
Does the Big 12 try and get the Pac-12?
That's best case scenario. That's best is to make a full court press for Arizona and Arizona State because the TV deal and the revenue is so bad. But then you've got to stop being these teams that are like Kansas State and Iowa State and all these people that are like, we don't want to expand because we don't want to give up any of our money. How do we know we'll still get the same amount of money? How do we know we won't have to give up some of that to Arizona and Arizona State?
Well, shit, you need to tell them what the money's going to look like as a group of 5 team once OU and Texas leave and they suddenly have no more money.
Go ask Boise how that goes when your TV deal gets renegotiated with CBS and then they take away your
that's happening
your
to them right
bonuses.
now, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Basically, Boise State said, oh, we'll stay in this conference, but you're going to pay us more than everybody else. And they said, that's fine, until they got their new TV deal. They just conveniently said, okay, you don't get more money now.
They had to have seen that.
So now
coming,
Boise
right?
is suing the Mountain West or whatever they are.
They had to have seen that coming.
I'm telling you.
I mean, Boise State doesn't necessarily carry the same weight that they did. I don't
10
know,
years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say 15, but I'll give you 10.
Since Peterson left, basically.
I mean, we've gotten out of the stage of where people are going on campaigns to kick Baylor out of the conference now. At least we're past that.
I think everybody figured out, oh, shit, these guys got a lot of money.
Oh, my God. It's ridiculous how much money they have.
And maybe, I know people don't want to hear this, but right now, maybe one of the best athletic programs in the country. When you talk about the success they're coming off of with Matt Rule, I mean, their basketball teams are both
well, get ready.
top 5.
Buckle up because that football program is coming with money for players.
Yeah. I think if it's not Aranda, they'll find somebody who will. I mean, they'll find somebody who's going to get it sorted out. Baylor's not going to be bad at sports for the foreseeable future.
They employed Art Briles. You think they're willing to do anything?
It goes back to the.
Yes, they are.
Hell, they defended Art Briles.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They launched a campaign. Cab. I mean, come on.
Oh my gosh.
Truth don't lie.
It kind of, you know what? I think it's been enough time now. It kind of goes back to the Amy Schumer Friday Night Lights, Coach Taylor. You know.
What'd she say?
You don't remember that skit? Where they had to keep telling the high school players that they can't rape people?
I don't think I even ever saw that.
You never saw that?
No. Was it SNL?
It was Comedy Central. I think it was like an Amy Schumer show.
Oh, like her show?
Yeah.
Her show?
Yeah. Yeah, you should go on YouTube and look that up. But it was great because
If I had a diminished personality, I might.
She played Coach Taylor's wife, and in every scene, her wine glass just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's pretty good. That's pretty funny.
So anyway, anything else you want to hit on recruiting, bringing guys in, Josh, before we get out of here today?
No, there's I wouldn't say there's anybody like I'm an immediate. I mean, McCutcheon's interesting. We'll kind of see what happens there. The only other guy I would say to kind of keep an eye on is Connor Tollison, the offensive lineman from Missouri that's coming in. He's one of those guys that OU made the offer, and everybody's like, who the hell is this guy? And then, like, A&M offered him, and he's starting to pick up a lot of national attention. And it's just Bill Bedenbaugh being really good at his job. So you look at how Oklahoma's recruited Missouri and really Kansas, kind of those two states over the last, 10, 15 years. You've got to think Oklahoma's got a real chance there if they want to push for him. And I get the impression he's a guy they like. So we'll see what happens. But I don't expect a lot of fireworks out of this weekend. But if one or two guys came down, it wouldn't shock me.
You know what's crazy? You mentioned Missouri lineman. I just realized this last year that Evan Boehm is still in the NFL.
That's a name I've not heard in a while.
He was probably one of my all-time best relationships with a guy that didn't go to Oklahoma.
Yeah, I remember you guys hit it off pretty good.
Yeah, like I felt like when he let me know he was going to be Missouri, like he was almost like apologizing. I'm like, dude, it's fine. Like it's okay. What what went into it? Like I'm like asking questions. He's like, yeah, I loved Oklahoma, man. Like I'm like, dude, it's fine. Like don't sweat it. But so yeah, he I would say he and Malik Jefferson are probably my top two that I really got to know well, and they went elsewhere.
Now
and
he wasn't Kyler's center last year, was he?
He might have been. Let's see.
He's with the Dolphins now. He's a freaking offensive lineman, so there's no stats to show where he was, what year, with what team.
Exactly. He had 4 starts last year. Great. That's awesome.
He's still in the league.
Yeah, still collecting a check. What year is this for him?
He was a 4th-round pick in 2016, so not that long ago.
Yeah. Kind of tells you, I mean, I guess he probably spent 5 years in Columbia, so that makes sense. No, he wouldn't have been because, let's see, August 30th, 2019, Boehm was traded to the Miami Dolphins along with undisclosed draft pick. I wonder, do you think he maybe was connected to, no, because August 30th, that wouldn't have made any sense. I was wondering if he was connected to the Rosen trade.
Yeah.
No, because he was in Indy before that.
What an electric into the pod today.
Yeah, exciting. Evan Boehm, career stats from former Missouri
We
center.
always have to have that little segment where we know the pod is definitely over.
Yeah.
And this was brought to you by Evan Boehm.
Do we have anything to add to the pod less exciting than Evan Boehm?
I was going to say baseball, but I was going to say that's less exciting.
I was just going to say, Oklahoma's going down to the Shriners College Classic this weekend. It actually is it's a huge weekend for Oklahoma and an opportunity to play some really good competition and kind of, in a way, see where they are, see where they stack up. Certainly, I think everybody would be looking to Friday afternoon at 3:00. It's over at Minute Maid. So
it's in the Cheaters Park.
Yeah. See if Arkansas be banging on some trash cans with Cade Cavalli up on the mound. But no, 3:00 Arkansas, 11 a.m. on Saturday against Missouri, 11 a.m. on Sunday against LSU. And I'm pretty sure Texas is down there as well. In fact, I know Texas is down there as well. So that's
that'd be a nice getaway for you and Linda this weekend.
It's a huge thing. I'm sure she's a baseball fan.
Yeah.
I
had to get it. Is this racist in there?
I may end up at that LSU game. As you
got some family, don't you?
Exactly. So we may go try and see that. I hadn't even thought about it. So
no, it is kind of a big weekend though. So we'll keep an eye on it. I don't think that any of those games are televised, but I don't know that for a fact. So look for something. We'll put up a little preview on the board here and probably tomorrow.
I wonder if there'll be any mini cars involved since it's the Shriners.
They have some type of thing in between the games because each school has a kid that they're sponsoring, I guess. And they all raise money, and then I don't know how they present it or whatever. However,
I love the Shriners Parade when I was a kid. The guys driving around on mini motorcycles and
I just never got it. I just never understood what was
I didn't
going
either.
on.
It was just
like why?
It's fascinating.
Why are they doing this?
It's a bunch of old men on tiny vehicles. It's fascinating.
Bet Jerry Sandusky wasn't.
Okay. All right, there's
your moment.
Final reason that we need to end the pod right now. All right. Thanks to Josh, thanks to Eddie, thanks to Bob. We'll be back again next week as we inch closer and closer to the start of spring football starting on March the 10th. Lincoln Riley press conference coming up March 9th, and then a big recruiting weekend coming up March 1st. So looking forward to that. Make sure to keep checking in on the website. Bob and Eddie doing a great job with the basketball coverage. As well as keeping up. Bob's still doing his series on the freshmen that didn't play last year and how they're coming along. That's been great to follow. And the NFL Combine coming up Thursday night, tomorrow night, depending on when you're listening to this program. Be great to see CeeDee Lamb out there going through some drills, what Neville Gallimore can do in the testing, what Jalen Hurts looks like throwing the football around. So a lot of good stuff coming for OU fans for football and basketball. So stay tuned here. Right at the Unofficial 40 podcast. We'll keep you updated. Until next time, we'll be back next week on the Unofficial 40 from SoonersScoop.com.